Morning. We are now going to take a look at what I believe personally to be one of the best games played in the last couple of months. And this game resembles the magic of Macau Tau, and it brings back a bit of beauty into the chess world. And the game we're going to look at is basically cooler than a polar bear's testicles. It is so cool. I really like this game. It's a beautiful game. And the player we're going to be, who's our hero today, is Levon Aronian. And Aronian is a great player, but he's had a very bad year. And he's recently done a bit of work with Magnus Carlsen. And this is maybe showing in his last tournament, or a tournament he's currently playing in, the Sinquefield Cup in America. And this event has been a great event so far. So much fighting chess. And the game we're going to look at was played in round 4. His opponent was Wesley So. And I thoroughly enjoyed this really wicked game. So before we move on, let's just see who Aronian is. So I've got a couple of pictures I'll just drag up. First of all, well, I think we all know what Aronian looks like, but quite famously, Aronian's girlfriend has been on TV a number of times. So let's just, first of all, have a look. And the reason I picked this picture here is because Aronian's girlfriend, Ariane, is in the middle. But on the right-hand side of Ariane is quite possibly the strongest GingerGM in the world. So that's why I like this picture. And that is Potkin, a player from Russia who has been European champion. So there was a time when I was trying to contest the title of Ginger's strongest player in the world's strongest Ginger, but I've given up on my dreams now. The dreams are gone. Well, let's have a look also at the tournament standings. I think this could be quite interesting if you're following the Sinquefield Cup. So sorry, I've just got to resize this a second. I'll just bring the names up first. Hopefully you can see the names, and I'll bring the scores up. You can see Topalov at the top, Aronian in second place, Kariana having a surprise result at the bottom. And now the scores, very briefly, is Topalov on 3 out of 4 and Aronian on 3 out of 4. So these guys are joint leading this competition. Now, in this game, I really enjoyed this game because Aronian played like my hero, Macau Tau. And Macau Tau was one of my favourite players, if not my favourite chess player of all time. He was the tactical genius, and he went for the opposing king. He just went kabong, kabong, and he just tried to grab the opponent's king and basically rip it apart. You know, like a polar bear. Not like a polar bear's testicles this time, but like a polar bear. And it was said that Tau doesn't move his pieces by hand, but by using a magic wand. And that's what people said about his movements. Now, I hope you're thinking of the right kind of magic wand there. I mean, that's a good test to see how your brain works at home. But you know what I mean. A magic wand in the magical way, not in the other way. And if you're more interested in this, I'll stop blabbling on soon and we'll get to the game. You can go to my website, which is GingerGM.com, and I have produced a DVD on Tau, an interactive DVD where you try to guess Tau's moves. Okay, enough of that. Enough of my sales pitch. Got to throw it in occasionally. On to the great game. And the game starts in a Nimzo Indian fashion. So we have quite a solid start. Bishop b4, typical Nimzo Indian we have here. Pinning the knight on c3. And stopping white from getting a centre with e4. And now Wesley So plays, I think, a very thematic and critical line, f3. This makes a lot of sense because in the Nimzo, the position is quite often about the fight for the e4 square. And by playing the move f3, white gives extra protection to this square on e4. And now Aronian struck out with c5. d5, and really this is a battle about whether Wesley So can control his centre, which he can try to do in a number of ways. So when he puts a pawn on e4, whether he can hold his centre together and have an advantage due to his extra space, or whether Aronian can start striking out like a bit of a cobra, and just, you will see lots of strikes in this game. It's a lot of striking chess. It's kind of Bruce Lee chess, this. He goes kabong over there, and like Kung Fu Panda. And let's see this in action. So black castles. White now gets this big pawn mass in the centre. Black plays d6, knight ge2, and Wesley So's idea now is to go knight to g3, bishop to e2, and get his king castled. If he can play those 3 moves without any danger, he will have the advantage because his king will be safe and he has a space advantage. And now we already see the first type of cobra strike, a6. And this is a typical idea for this position. Black wants to break on the queen side with b5, and b5 is a move that tries to sort of nibble away at white's pawns in the centre and to try to open up the white king, because the problem white has is that his king is in the middle and black is castled. Now white plays a4 to try to hold down on the b5 break, and here a very interesting novelty, and this novelty was apparently found by the Hungarian grandmaster Peter Leko, who I first met in Budapest when I was about 12 years old. And I've played football with Peter Leko before. I actually hacked his legs in a game of football. Should I say it's football, not American football. This is football soccer for any Americans out there. We played on a beach in Mallorca, and I actually hacked his legs and I took him down with a foul. Maybe my claim to fame, that. Poor old Peter. Sorries? What sorries mean? Sorry, if you're listening to this. So now Peter's novelty is bishop to a5. A very intriguing move, but the idea is to get ready for this cobra strike of b5 and not allow white's rook to cause mischief on the a file. For example, if now knight to g3, black gets a very good position by playing b5, and if you go like a takes b5, black plays a takes b5, and now black has this nasty threat of going bishop takes c3, check, winning the rook on a1. So you can't allow that to happen. So on with the game. So obviously Wesley So tried to deal with this in a different way, and he defended his rook on a1 by playing bishop to d2, and he also broke the pin on his knight. So this is a multi-purpose move here. And now the game continued. E takes d5. So really Aronian's whole idea here is to open up the center, you know, like an egg. You need to crack the shell, you need to chip away, you need to open it up, and in the middle of the egg is the white king. And this is what black is trying to do: crack away at the egg, chip away at that shell, protecting the king. Now white played c takes d5, and here a brilliant move. Now b5 is not working so well here because now white can take on b5 and possibly do something like knight takes b5, but I think an excellent move. Instead of this, now Aronian strikes on the other side of the board, and this is where it gets a lot of fun. Knight to h5, an excellent idea. And this game is all about energy. Tau played with energy, and in this game Aronian plays with energy, complete energy. And the idea is to play f5 in some positions, chipping away at that shell. You're trying to prise open the egg, and you need to do that with pawn breaks. And the other idea is to allow the queen to come to h4 with check. And now g3, stopping the check. Black develops knight d7. Before you launch your attack, you need a strong foundation. It reminds me of that parable which I mentioned before in the Bible, where the person builds his house on sand, bad foundation, the house collapses. And you need to have a strong foundation when you're building attacking chess. So you need to basically, like, you know, make sure your pieces are developed, you have good activity, and you're going for the strike, the kill. So bishop to g2 played, and now black plays b5, and so he's moving over here. And here white should have castled. Without a shadow of doubt, white should have castled. But instead he played g4, and this is a very bad move, but it takes great energy to destroy this idea. I don't like this move because look at white's pieces for the rest of the game. I believe the only piece that white gets past the second rank in this game is, the only piece that gets past the second rank is the knight on c3. I mean, this is unbelievable. So, first of all, black attacks with b4, attacking the knight. Wesley now retreats his only developed piece back to b1. And here, queen to h4, check. Now, white cannot play knight to g3, because if you do go knight to g3, black takes the knight, so he has to move his king. King to f1. And now, I think, the best move of the game. This is where energy is required. Because obviously, I think this might be the move that Wesley missed. If you have to now retreat the knight on h5 to f6, then, you know, you're getting pushed backwards. And when you're trying to attack, when your opponent's king has moved earlier on, when you have a good active position, when you have good pawns on the queen side, like black has here, it's about playing with energy. You cannot extinguish the fire. You need to keep it burning by throwing wood on the fire. You need to keep throwing wood on the fire. You need to keep going forwards. So what do you think black played here? And this is a move with energy. See, pause the video if you need to. Try to think what you might play here to start an attack, even if it costs you precious material. Well, the move is knight to e5. Fantastic move. And this brings another piece into the game. Allows the bishop on c8 access to h3 in some lines. But most importantly, if white now takes on h5, which he did not play, black can use a big lever, the Freddy lever, Freddy the f-pawn, our good friend Freddy. A bit like Freddy Krueger, this pawn wants to run up the board, f5. And now the rook on f8 can join in the party. That rook is hungry for some blood. And we'll have a look at some lines here because it's quite fascinating stuff. But in the game, just to let you know what happened first, white played bishop to e1. And we'll come back to this in a second. This is the way to try to force black pieces out of the white position. But in the game, let's have a look at some lines if, let's say, white took this piece. Well, now f5, clearly the best move. And here, I think white has to try to eject the queen on h5 again and bring some pieces a bit nearer to his king to defend. So bishop to e1, forcing that queen away. And now I quite like the move queen to e7 because this doesn't block the rook and it keeps the queen potentially on a dangerous line on the e file. And it's very strange here because even though black is a piece down, look at the horrible traffic jam that these pieces white has on the first two ranks creates. Look at them, they look disgusting. They're huddled together like, you know, like there's a blizzard. They're all huddling together trying to get warmth, but they just get in the way of each other. It's like a bad traffic jam on the M25 in rush hour traffic on a Friday, and you don't want to be stuck on one of them. Not pleasant. I to my sins, when I was young, I remember being with the Pert brothers, Nick and Rich Pert, Grandmaster and I am now, and this was when I was young and foolhardy, and I remember we were on our way to a chess tournament, and there was a traffic jam on the M21, and this is how desperate I was to get to the game, and we would have been late had we stuck in the traffic jam, so I nipped into the hard shoulder, which is totally illegal, so I hope there's no police watching, and I zoomed down the whole hard shoulder for about 3 miles to get off the motorway. Got away with it and got to the game. So this is how dedicated we were to chess. Wouldn't do it nowadays. Much more sensible nowadays. But yeah, that was how desperate I was. Talking about traffic jams, don't know where that came from. Okay, but anyway, in this variation, I think white has two critical moves. White can either take on f5 or try to defend his position with knight to g3. Because at the moment, black has a simple threat of going f takes e4, and then when the f file is opened, there's going to be a calamity appearing on the f3 square. This square is just collapsing, really, really horrible. So first of all, let's have a look at knight to g3. And now I think the best way to play is with violence. If you have sacked a piece, you've got to play the most aggressive moves first. And there's a very attractive line here. The attractive line is take on e4 first. Obviously, every move, look at the most aggressive, look at the ways you can open up lines and attack. Now, the pawn on f3 is what's called in a pin. It's pinned down, so it can't move to the e-file. So white has to catch up with a knight. And now a lovely tactical sequence. Again, maybe pause the video now and try to work out what you would play if you were black in this position. Violence is the key. Well, we can now go knight takes f3. Violence, violence, violence. And we can see why I want the queen on e7 now. I like this queen on e7. And after the forced move bishop takes f3, black now gets the piece back with queen takes e4. And there's some beautiful lines here. The threat at the moment is rook takes f3. And I calculated that white now has two ways to try to defend. King to g2 or knight to d2. So one amazing line here is after knight to d2, there's a simply lovely bishop checkmate here, which can occur after the moves. Bishop h3 check, of course, developing with speed. King to g1. And now you simply go queen to f4. And again, the traffic jam of white pieces, they can't coordinate. And when you're playing chess, one of the key things is to get your pieces working as a team. They're not individual players. They have to work as a team. This is a team game with your pieces. So here, none of the white pieces moving. And it's very amusing to see that rooks throughout this game linger in the corners of the board. But queen to f4 just keeps the pressure up. And one beautiful line I saw here was, well, a logical move for white is bishop to g3. Attacking the queen. And here, if black plays queen to e3 check, which he could have done last move anyway, bishop to f2. How do you make progress? Queen to f4, bishop to g3, and we can get a draw. So another question for you guys. Pause the video if you need to. What is a brilliant move from black here? And this is the double exclamation mark. This is the kind of mark, the kind of move that gets you a little bit excited. A little bit, you know, if you see this move during a game, you know, a little bit of wee might run out. I don't know if I should have said that too late now, but you know what I mean. It's an exciting move. You get a little bit happy about this move. Now, what is the move? The move is c4. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And you might be thinking, what is this? What is this? Well, try to use all your pieces in the party. Simple. And the bishop on a5 can now join the party. So if white grabs this queen, we have bishop b6 check, bishop e3, bishop takes e3, checkmate. A quite fantastic combination there. So that's just one of the many beautiful lines that black can play in some of these sacrificial variations. And this does work because black's pieces, look at them, they're nearly all partying. And white's pieces, like I said, are in the traffic jam. So when you go for a sacrifice, you have to look at these things, these like factors, before you can assess whether it's good sacrifice or not. Now, the other move here, instead of knight to d2, is king to g2. And here, I think black can continue with aggressive play. Again, violence is key. Can you see the good move from black here? Anyone like to see the move? Okay, pause the video again if you need to. Bishop to h3 check. A lovely, lovely way to continue. And now, well, white is in serious trouble. The king is entering into no man's land. He's going over the top of the trenches, walking through the field, and people are taking shots at him. He will get struck in the forehead very soon. For example, king takes bishop, rook takes f3 check, bishop to g3. May look like he's defending, but there's too much pressure. Queen to f5 check, king g2, and now a lovely move, rook to d3. The point of this, we're going to take more pawns, and white is so badly developed. For example, queen to f1, queen takes d5 check, king to d1, and now just rook to f8, bringing the last piece into the game. And even if you want to be rather cheeky here, you could consider going c4 and bishop to b6 yet again at some stage. Everything is working. So this just demonstrates some of the dangers involved with this attack that Aronian has created on the board. It's simply beautiful, I think, a really modern day masterpiece. And how rare is it to see something like this in modern day chess? It's very, very rare. So let's just go on with the game and see what happened now. I've demonstrated some interesting lines. So rather than taking on h5, which we've just seen is very dangerous, White tried bishop to e1, and now the game continued. Queen to f6. White has to grab some bounty. Pawn takes h5. Knight takes f3, opening up the king. Black has to contend with bishop to f2, blocking up the f-file. And now a brilliant move here. When I was analysing this at the time, I thought queen takes b2 was good. But here, White can take the bishop, Black grabs a rook, but the game goes on after king g2, and White's king has got to safety. And I think the computer actually recommends queen takes b2 originally, but then it starts to like Aronian's move, which is a much more human-like move, and a much more, I think it's fair to say, practical move. Keep the initiative going. Don't need to grab material yet. Keep the pressure up, and this brings another bit into the attack whilst pressurizing White. And now White decides to guard b2. But here, knight to d4. Excellent move. And why knight to d4? Well, the idea is to open the c line, so we can now get the rooks into the game. And really, White's position is crumbling. Knight takes d4, and now c takes d4. And we have rook to c8 coming in. And again, this extra piece that White has does not matter. Black's just playing with energy, but he's also not playing with such a rush. You know, he doesn't need to rush. He's playing... Tao was very famous for sacrificing a piece and then continuing as if nothing had happened. But he'd just keep creating threats, and that's what Aronian is doing here. Now, e5 from Wesley So is a good defensive try. It gives up a pawn, but now White has vacated this e4 square. So Wesley wants to put his knight on e4, try to defend like this. Black simply takes this, knight to d2, so we see the plan in action. Of course, Black puts his rook on the c line. Now, queen to b1 played. Very hard to find any other move here. There are some lines with knight to c4, but this is very bad because the knight's in a pin, and there is a number of strong moves here. Both b3 from Black, stopping White from playing b3, and maybe even better, d3. This is a very, very strong move, and we can now use our pawns. Very, very good position. We don't need to analyse this much more. So in the game, queen to b1 was played, and now another great move, b3. And the idea of this move is to secure the c2 square for the rook, number one, allow the Black bishop to enter into the game where it was blocked before. And also, if White takes this pawn with his knight, we've distracted the knight away from its crucial square, which was the e4 square. So White decided to grab on b3. And now the bishop moves back to a much more dynamic and threatening square, b6. And there is a strong threat here of going d3 when the pressure increases on the pinned bishop on f2. Now a5 was played, and here Aronian picks a safe route. He played it very quickly, but there is an astonishing move here that forces White to sacrifice the queen. What would you play if you were Black here? Pause the video. You can play the sensible Aronian move, which was bishop to a7, but if Tao was alive and playing this game, I'm pretty sure he'd play in a different way here. What move, what forwards move is a brilliant idea here? Well, rook to c2, a simply astonishing, like a little attacking move, a really, really nice move, because now White has to take on c2, and the point is you throw in d3 and you attack the queen and you unleash your bishop against f2. The real point in this idea is, well, the White queen has to stay defending the bishop on f2, otherwise Black plays queen takes f2, checkmate. And after queen d2, we have a move that's called kind of a blockading move. It gets in the middle of the coordination between two pieces. Bishop to e2, check. And next move, queen takes f2 is checkmate. And this would have been a lovely finish. The only defensive try that white can try is after the move d3, white can try taking on b6 when he loses his queen and the black attack rages on. But maybe Aronian didn't want to risk this position, which is still, I mean, it's winning for black, but he wanted to play in a more calm way anyway. And the way he played was also very good. So what did he do? Rook c2, an amazing idea though. Bishop a7 played, keeping the ideas alive. And now king to g1. It's worth pointing out, a move ago, king to g1 was not possible because here black could play d3. And the major difference is his queen defends the bishop. As if you compare that line to the game, after a5, bishop to a7, king to g1, you can't go d3 now because white simply captures the bishop. So instead, Aronian played bishop to f5 with the idea of controlling the c2 square. So another piece floods in. As well as this, the bishop supports the black pawns coming forwards. And now the losing mistake here, it's in a tough position anyway, bishop to e4. And there's a couple of ways to win this position. d3 again is a very nice tactical move here. But the way Aronian played, he forced issues with check. Queen g5 check. White can't really block with a bishop because then you have this very hidden bishop on a7 jump to life with d3 check. This is the end of the game. And if not bishop there, the game, well, continued. King to f1. But after Aronian's excellent move, queen to f4 on move 28, white resigned. And I think that's a beautiful game. Why did white resign? His bishop on e4 is attacked. So his only sensible option is to play bishop takes f5. But here, black can now play the move that keeps propping up time and time again, pawn to d3. The threat is queen takes f2, checkmate. There's only one way for white to defend against this. White has to guard the bishop with something like queen to e2. And now black can simply increase the pressure on the bishop on f2 and bring another piece into the attack. Rook to c2. And now black has bishop, rook and queen all attacking f2. There's nothing white can do here. Black's next move will be something like rook takes f2. For example, let's say white has this problem with coordination for the whole game. Let's say white tries rook c1. We now go rook takes f2 check. If the white queen captures, it's checkmates. The king has to go in the corner. And there's a number of ways to win here. One nice way to win is by unleashing your bishop on a7 with a discovered check. A double check in actual fact. Rook to f1, double check, bishop check and rook check. I think you should get bonus points for doing a double check in chess. I think double checks are pretty cool. They're not as cool as a polar bear's testicles, but they're still pretty damn cool. And here, after king g2, checkmate in one move, queen to f3, checkmate. So that is the idea, and that's why Wesley So resigned. But all in all, a simply astonishing game. And that was a modern day miniature, and you rarely see them nowadays. One of my favourite games, actually, I have to say, that I've seen so far in the last year, because I just like the way black played energetically. Black created problems. Black always went for strikes against the white position. In the opening, if we just jump back to critical moments, white first had to face the b5 strike, which was an issue he had to cope with. Then later on, he had to face the queen h4 and f5 strike. Black just kept striking like this, like a ninja on drugs, a chess ninja. And a beautiful game from Aronian. I really enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed it. And obviously, if you liked the video, please like, please subscribe. And yeah, I'll try to do some blitz tomorrow, I guess. But I had to commentate on that game because it brought a lot of joy to me. And I learned quite a lot from that game as well. Obviously, there's a lot to take in there. So, you know, I understand if it's a bit complicated for me. Most things are nowadays. But, you know, we get there eventually. Cheers for tuning in. If you've lasted this long on my commentary, you deserve a medal. Well done. Bye.